Picture a village, somewhere in the Balkans, southeastern Europe, a couple of centuries ago. It's high summer, and it has not rained in weeks. The corn is curling, the wells are dropping. People are starting to do the math on the winter.
The quiet kind of disaster. No flood, no fire, just an empty sky, day after day.
And then, down the dirt road between the houses, something strange comes walking. A girl, young, 12, maybe 14, and she is completely covered in green. Leaves, branches, vines, flowers, wound around her body until you can barely see the child underneath. She's not wearing a costume. She's wearing the forest.
And she's not alone. There's a little procession behind her, other kids, singing. They go house to house, and at each door the girl dances, spins, and the people of the house come out and throw water over her, buckets of it, until she's soaked.
And everyone understands exactly what's happening. This is how you ask the sky for rain. Okay, so quaint little folk custom, right? Sweet bit of old village color. Something for the tourist brochure.
That's what it looks like. That is 100% not what it is.
No.
What you are actually looking at, Alex, is a funeral that never ended. That ritual is the tomb of a god, a real one. A god who sat at the very top of an entire people's religion and who survived in hiding for more than 1,000 years after the church declared him dead. He's been hiding in that song the whole time, in the girl's name, and nobody walking in that procession had any idea they were carrying him.
Okay, that's the show. Let's do it. Welcome in, everybody. Today we're chasing a god through 1,000 years of disguises, and we start with a butterfly.
We start with a butterfly.
So let's name the thing. This ritual, it has a lot of names because it stretches across the whole Balkan Peninsula and beyond it. Bulgaria, Serbia, North Macedonia, Croatia, Montenegro, and out into Albania, Greece, Romania, Hungary, dozens of regional names, but two big ones. In some places, the leaf-covered girl is called the Dodola, and in others, including in Bulgaria, she's called the Peperuda. And here's your first little trapdoor. Because if you speak Bulgarian, Peperuda is a completely ordinary word. It means butterfly. Right, so you'd hear Peperuda, and you'd think, sure, the girl flutters from house to house, she's covered in leaves, she's like a butterfly. Cute. Folk poetry. Done.
Except a lot of linguists who've looked hard at that word think the butterfly is a coincidence sitting on top of something much older and much heavier, because under Peperuda, Peperuga in the older forms, many scholars argue you can hear another name, Perun.
And for anyone who doesn't know that name, who was Perun?
Perun was the king, top of the entire Slavic pantheon, the thunder god, god of storms, of lightning, of the oak tree, of war, and of oaths. When the early Slavs swore a binding oath, they swore it on Perun, and if you broke it, the understanding was that the god would split you with lightning like he splits an oak. In the year 980, when Prince Vladimir of Kiev set up an official pantheon of idols, Perun stood at the front of it with a silver head and a golden mustache.
A golden mustache. Respect.
And then the same prince later on converts to Christianity. And he has the idol of Perun, his own state god, dragged down, beaten with sticks, and thrown into the river Dnieper. Officially, that's the end. The thunder god is dead. New religion now.
So that's the murder.
That's the murder. Now follow the body. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about killing a god. You can smash the statue, you can ban the temple, but the god doesn't live in the statue. He lives in the words people put in their children's mouths, and those you cannot smash. You can only paint over them.
And that's the rain song.
That's the rain song. Centuries after Perun is officially dead and gone, in villages all over the Balkans, children are walking from door to door chanting a name that means butterfly, and which a lot of careful scholars believe is the thunder god's own name, worn smooth by 1,000 summers of small voices that no longer knew whose name it was.
That genuinely gives me chills. The most powerful god in the religion, and his last temple is a children's game about rain.
And it's perfect when you think about it. What was Perun the god of? Thunder, storms, rain. So, of course, when the priests come and say you can't worship him anymore, the one place the memory survives is the one place people are too desperate to give it up. When the crops are dying and they need rain, and some old grandmother says, "Do the thing we've always done." They don't even need to believe in him. They just needed to have worked once.
Okay, but I want to push on you here, because this is the show. Scholars argue that's doing a lot of work. How sure are we that Peperuda is Perun and not just, butterfly?
Good, you should push. Honest answer, it's strongly argued, it's the leading view, but it is not settled, and there are smart people on other sides. Some scholars think the whole rain ritual is actually older than the Slavs entirely, that it's Thracian, inherited from the ancient peoples who lived in the Balkans before the Slavs ever arrived, and the Slavs just adopted it. There are also people who connect the Dodola name to a different figure altogether. So the word link is a powerful clue, not a closed case.
I appreciate that. That's the difference between us and the spookier corners of the internet.
It is the whole difference. But here's why I lean in hard on the Perun link. Because the word is not the only fingerprint. There's a second one, and it's even better, and it's hiding inside the song itself.
Go.
So the rain song survived too, recorded by folklorists in the 18 and 1900s. And by then, of course, everyone is Christian. So the songs are Christian songs now. The refrains call on God. "Oh God, dear God, let it rain." Totally pious, nothing pagan about it on the surface.
Naturally, the paint job.
The paint job. But in some recorded versions of these songs, the paint is cracked. Because in those versions, the children aren't just calling on God, they're calling on the prophet Elijah. And in at least one recorded variant, the line runs, and I'm translating, "O Elijah, my Perun." Right there, side by side, the Christian prophet and then the old God's actual name sitting in the same breath inside the same prayer.
Wait, they kept the name out loud in a Christian song?
They kept the name. They almost certainly had no idea what it meant anymore. It's a fossil, like finding a dinosaur bone set into the wall of a cathedral. Somebody built it in centuries ago and everyone just walked past it.
Okay, but why Elijah specifically? Of all the saints and prophets to glue the thunder god onto, why him?
This is my favorite part. It is the cleanest piece of detective work in the whole story. When the Slavs became Christian, the thunder god didn't have anywhere to go, except that Christianity already had a thunder guy, the prophet Elijah. In the Bible, Elijah calls down fire from heaven, and at the end he's taken up into the sky in a chariot of fire. So in the folk imagination across the Slavic and Balkan world, Saint Elijah, Ilya, becomes the one who rides his thunder chariot across the sky, and the rumble you hear in a storm is his wheels.
Which is just Perun with the halo.
That is Perun wearing a Christian hat. The job description didn't change at all. Throws lightning, brings storms, lives in the sky. You do not want to make him angry. They just swapped the name on the door. The god kept working. He kept his exact same job for another 1,000 years. He just had to convert.
That refrains the whole thing for me. We always tell this story like Christianity arrives and wipes the old gods out. And what you're describing is that's not what happened. The old gods didn't die. They got hired under new management. They were too useful to fire. You can outlaw a temple. You cannot outlaw the human need for someone to be in charge of the weather. So the gods went into witness protection. New name, new paperwork, same face. Now, you mentioned folklorists writing this down in the 1800s, but you told me before we started that somebody noticed this connection way earlier, and it's a detail I cannot stop thinking about. Yeah, 1792.
A Bulgarian monk, a Hiero monk named Spiridon Gabrovsky, one of the very first people to try to write a history of the Bulgarian people. And in his writing, he records the Peperuda rain custom, and he flags the connection to Perun, the old god's name.
In 1792.
1792. Sit with that. This is 230 years ago. There's no comparative linguistics yet, no folklore studies as a science, none of the modern toolkit. Just a monk paying attention who hears a children's rain song and goes, "Wait, I know that name. That's not a butterfly. That's the thunder god." And then he writes it down, and the note survives. And here we are.
So this isn't some modern internet theory that somebody cooked up last Tuesday. People who lived inside the culture, who spoke the language, were spotting the buried god centuries ago.
That, to me, is the thing that turns a fun coincidence into a real case. When the people closest to the tradition, when a monk in 1792 and a Russian linguist in the 1900s and folklorists collecting songs in remote villages all keep independently arriving at the same buried name, that's not
Pattern matching, that's an excavation. Okay, the name, the song, the 1792 monk, I feel like that would be enough for most stories, but you keep hinting there's more and that it gets bigger. So how much bigger does this get? How big do you want it? Because the god isn't only hiding in the song, he's hiding in the map. In the map. All across the South Slavic lands, there are places named after Perun. Mountains, peaks, villages, springs, places with names built right out of his. Perun this, Perunak that, Perunica, Perun's peak. The god is written into the landscape itself, in the names of the hills people have walked past for 1,000 years. And there's one of those that you tease me with that I have to make you say. I'll say it, but I'm gonna say it carefully because it's debated. There's a famous mountain range in southwestern Bulgaria called Pirin. Beautiful, dramatic mountains, and some scholars have argued, not proven, that the word Pirin itself may come from Perun, that the thunder god's name is sitting there in plain sight on the map as the name of a mountain range that millions of people know. So a Bulgarian kid could go on a school hiking trip up into the Pirin Mountains, learning nothing about any of this, and be walking through a place that might literally be named after a god everyone forgot.
Possibly. And I want to flag that possibly in neon, because place name etymology is a swamp and people get very excited and very wrong in it. But the broader pattern, that the landscape is dotted with Perun names, that part is solid. The god got smashed in Kiev and thrown in a river, and then his name quietly spread out across the whole map and just stayed there.
I keep coming back to how patient this is. Like, the culture didn't decide to preserve him. There was no
Secret society guarding the flame. It's almost the opposite. He survived precisely because everyone forgot. Because once it's just the name of that mountain and the word for butterfly, nobody thinks to ban it.
That's exactly it. Forgetting was the camouflage. A remembered pagan god gets you in trouble with the priest. A forgotten one gets to ride along inside a nursery rhyme forever. The amnesia is what saved him.
All right, we've got him hidden in a song, hidden in a prayer, hidden in a mountain. You promised me this goes deeper than the Balkans. This is the part where I think people's jaws actually drop. Take us all the way down.
Okay, deep breath. Because now we leave the Balkans entirely and we go back in time. Not centuries, thousands of years. Here's the setup. Linguists have spent 200 years reconstructing a single ancestor language. We call it Proto-Indo-European. It was spoken maybe 5,000–6,000 years ago by a people somewhere up around the steppes north of the Black Sea. And it is the great-great-grandmother of an enormous slice of the world's languages. English, Greek, Latin, Russian, Persian, the languages of the northern India. They are all distantly the same family, cousins.
A one ancient family that fanned out across half the planet.
And when they fanned out, they didn't just carry words, they carried gods. And one of the gods they carried, maybe the most important one, was a thunder god, a sky father who throws lightning. Linguists have even reconstructed his probable name, Perquanos.
Perquanos, and okay, I can already hear it.
You can already hear it. Now watch where this one god's name lands as the family scatters. The Balts, Lithuania, Latvia, they get a thunder god named Perkunas, almost unchanged. The Slavs, our guys, they get Perun, and then go all the way to the other end of the family down into ancient India, into the oldest Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, and there is a rain and thunder god named Parjanya.
Stop. So Perun in the Balkan rain song and a god in the Rig Veda in ancient India are the same god? The same original god?
They're branches off the same 5,000-year-old trunk. Perun, Perkunas, Parjanya, Slavic, Baltic, Indian, they're what's left of one Proto-Indo-European storm god, splitting and drifting across thousands of years and thousands of miles.
So let me put the whole thing in one sentence and you tell me if I've broken anything. A teenage girl covered in leaves dancing for rain in a Balkan village 200 years ago is performing a ritual to a god who is the same god the priests of ancient India were singing hymns to, and neither of them knew about each other, and neither of them knew his real age.
That you haven't broken a thing. That village girl and the priest chanting the Rig Veda are, in a very real sense, praying to the same grandfather, from opposite ends of the earth, across 5,000 years, both reaching up an empty, blazing sky and calling the ancient name, asking the same ancient favor. Rain. Please, rain.
That's the most beautiful and the most haunting thing I've heard in a long time. Okay, so I'm fully sold. I'm ready to go cover myself in leaves. Which means, Zube, I know this face. This is exactly when you tell me to calm down.
This is exactly when I tell you to calm down, because we've reached the most important part of the whole episode, and it's the part that actually makes this show worth doing. If you go home tonight and you type Slavic goddess Dodola into a search bar, you are going to get hit with a flood of stuff. You'll read that Dodola is a beautiful goddess, the wife of Perun, that she's the goddess of rain, that the god Velis stole her away on her wedding day, and that Perun fought a great cosmic war to get her back, and that the two of them had a divine child. Whole biography, family tree. Sounds amazing. And let me guess, most of it is made up, recent, modern.
Okay, but define made up, because we just spent 20 minutes saying this stuff is real and ancient.
Right, and this is the surgical distinction the whole show lives on. So let me be very precise. There are two completely different things tangled together here, and you have to separate them. Thing one, the ritual, the leaf-covered girl, the rain dance, the song, the buried name of Perun. That's real. That's attested. Folklorists watched it happen. Monks wrote it down in the 1700s. That's bedrock.
That's the part we can stand on.
Stand on it all day. Thing two is different. Thing two is the idea that there was a specific named goddess, Dodola, with a marriage and a kidnapping and a soap opera plot. And that part, the neat divine biography, is largely a modern reconstruction. Some of it is 19th century romantic nation building, when people across Europe desperately wanted their ancestors to have a tidy, organized pantheon like the Greeks did. So they helped the evidence along.
They built the gods they wish they'd had.
They built the gods they wish they'd had. And some of it is worse than that. Some of it traces back to outright forgery. There's a notorious document called the Book of Velis, Velesova Kenya, that surfaced in the 20th century claiming to be an ancient sacred text of the pagan Slavs. It is a fake. Scholars are essentially unanimous. It's a modern forgery. But it got picked up and spread by popularizers, and a lot of the confident, detailed, ancient Slavic mythology floating around online today is downstream of that fake and books like it. So you get this beautiful, elaborate goddess presented as ancient, and her paper trail runs out in the 1900s.
This is doing my head in the best way.
Because the fake stuff is the stuff that sounds the most like real mythology. The marriage, the abduction, the war, and the actually ancient stuff
Is the boring-looking thing. A kid in some leaves singing about rain.
And that is the single most important lesson this whole show has to teach. The real fossil almost never looks like treasure. It looks like a children's rhyme. It looks like the word for butterfly. It looks like the name of a mountain. The genuinely ancient survivals are humble, fragmentary, and easy to walk past because they survived by being humble. The shiny, dramatic, fully explained version with the love triangle and the family tree, that glitter is usually new. That's not the gold. That's the gold-painted plastic somebody made in 1990 and told you was 1,000 years old. The truth hidden in the myth. I came into this episode thinking the truth was something secret, a code, a conspiracy. And it's not that at all, is it?
It's not a conspiracy. It's the opposite of a conspiracy. There was no secret keeper. The truth hidden in this myth is just a real god hiding in plain sight for 1,000 years inside a song that children sang and a mountain that people climbed. Not because anyone protected him, because everyone forgot him just enough to stop being afraid of him.
Myth as smuggling.
And that's a good way to put it. Myth is how a culture smuggles its dead gods through the centuries. They strap the old god to the underside of a nursery rhyme where the customs officers, the priests, the conquerors, never think to look, and the god rides along, quiet, for 1,000 years, until someone like that monk in 1792, or someone like us tonight, kneels down, looks under the rhyme, and goes, "Oh, there you are. Hello, old king."
Hello, old king. Okay, I think that's where we landed. Let me try to send people off with the picture. So, next time you read about some sweet little folk tradition, a song, a dance, a strange word nobody can quite explain, don't roll your eyes at it. Don't file it under quaint. Lean in close, because there might be a thunder god folded up inside it. There might be 5,000 years inside it, and it might be the only thing left of an entire vanished world waiting in the open for somebody to finally recognize the name.
And maybe the next time it doesn't rain and you're getting frustrated, some very old, very deep part of your brain wants to find a child, cover them in leaves, and pour water on their head. And now you know that's not superstition. That's a 5,000-year-old prayer, and the god it's addressed to is named Perun, or Perkunis, or Parjanya. Take your pick. He's answered to all of them.
That's the episode. Thank you so much for spending it with us. Next time, we are going somewhere darker. We're going to talk about people, real people, recorded by real ethnographers, who believe that while their bodies lay asleep, their souls left them in the night to fight in the storms over the fate of the harvest, the soul warriors of the Balkans, and the strange forgotten thread that connects them to a secret cult on the other side of Europe.
It's a good one.
Bring a blanket. Until then, keep looking under the rhymes. See you next time.